Greetings and welcome to the English 101 Portfolio Assignment Overview. Let's start with looking at exactly what is a portfolio. Well, in this course, a portfolio is a purposeful collection of items from coursework that you completed, which is designed to be the evidence and support used to demonstrate your learning, as that learning applies to yourself and how you see yourself as a writer, and in explaining that understanding to other people. And these are people you do not know. That is important. This is an audience that you don't know. So before we get to the portfolio, let's take a second and think through the semester and have you recall the student learning outcomes. You have 7 of them. And I'm not going to read them as they appear on the screen because you have them most likely in your syllabus or in some other documentation your instructor has given you. Now you want to think and look back at these learning outcomes because you can use them to help you demonstrate what you've learned. And you can use references to them when you have to demonstrate your learning in the portfolio itself and the components that you will be required to submit. So let's look at the portfolio components. You have to have 7 items, 3 short assignments, a couple of rough drafts, a final document or project that you've created, and a reflective letter. This reflective letter is the new piece of writing that you are creating. Everything else you've done, so you need to think about the content of that reflective letter. And we're going to look at each of these components just a little bit here. For those short assignments, think about what sorts of tasks did you complete this semester that were not the final version of an essay or writing assignment that you turned in for evaluation by your instructor. Which of those assignments would help you demonstrate to an audience you don't know your growth as a writer? That's how you may want to think about selecting those 3 short assignments. As we look at the rough drafts, you've completed some this semester. However, did you use the same process? Which rough draft will best help you demonstrate your growth? Is it the one that you got feedback from just one classmate? Or that you have a draft that went through a couple of different versions and you got feedback from your instructor or writing tutor, your Aunt Helen? I don't know. But you want to select the draft that helps you demonstrate your growth as a writer. That final project or document, again, you've completed several this semester. You want to pick the one that will demonstrate your growth. These components are the part of your portfolio that you are talking about and using in your letter to help that audience understand how you see yourself, your strengths and weaknesses all at the end of this semester. So, what is the actual rhetorical situation, the writing situation for this portfolio? Of course, this semester you've talked about genre. You got to figure that out again. You have an audience, people you don't know, a panel of English instructors who have not been your teacher this semester. The purpose, your role as a writer. So the rhetorical situation never goes away. You just have to think through it again, even with the guidelines from this assignment and your instructor. You have to think about your time and your design. When you think about these things, this helps us bring together what's called the rhetorical triangle, the rhetorical situation. And inside there, this is where you have all of these components come together and they give us content. So what does this mean right now? Let's look at parts of the rhetorical situation. The genre, the assignment sheet lets you know that this is a reflective piece of writing. It also uses analysis, and your audience is not just your instructor. It's people you don't know, a panel of English instructors. So that means you have to think differently about what and how much information you need to include in this portfolio. The purpose of the portfolio and the reflective letter, you can read these on the assignment sheet, but there are 4 bullet points about purpose. You want to keep this in mind and return to these 4 bullet points at different points as you're working to complete your portfolio assignment. What is your role as a writer? Likely you have explored this semester. Again, that's where reflection comes in. What is your role in this particular writing situation? What's your relationship to that audience? How are you going to bring all of this together to consider the context? And how have you considered context this semester? And how might you consider it for this assignment? And if you need help, you should go to your instructor for some guidance. Now let's look at reflection, because you're going to need that as you put together this whole portfolio, but especially writing that letter. So as you think about what content to provide, which components, you're going to reflect on your writing this semester and use that writing and those experiences to create your analysis. And keep in mind that any good writing requires evidence to back it up. So let's look at the content of that letter that you're writing. For this assignment, reflection and evidence means finding specific examples from the work you completed this semester. Using that work, the components, those other pieces of the portfolio, as evidence for the claims that you make in that letter. Any piece of writing included in the portfolio must be referenced in your reflective letter. Otherwise, why have it in the portfolio? Content prompts. So we give you some guidance. You have to address at least 3 of the prompts on the assignment sheet, and you want to do that in a way that's cohesive and logical. Do not resort to using bullet points for these prompts. You need to use evidence from the portfolio components in the form of quotes, paraphrases, and summaries to help you address and explore those prompts that you've selected. So let's take a look at the prompts. Again, you have them on your assignment sheet. So again, you have to select 3 of these prompts. Now let's look at time and design. And for the purposes of this video, I've put organization and design together. So I want you to think about time, though, this way. It's a commitment. And how much time did you spend on the most challenging assignment you had this semester? Use that as your gauge for how much time you may have to put into the organization and design and reflection and the time it takes to write the letter. But the basic organization for your portfolio will be that the letter, that reflective letter, will be first. Next, everything else, and it should be organized in a way that most supports the content of your letter. But the third most important thing here is to check with your instructor to make sure you are completing this assignment in accordance to his or her expectations. So let's talk about checking with your instructor. Why do you need to check with your instructor? Because this is an overview, and you want to make sure you are completing all the required components, not just the ones I've presented in this video. You want to make sure that you're submitting your material correctly. And above all, be prepared. So save your work electronically on a computer. This may mean that you can't just rely on Google Drive or your notebook. You may have to get creative. You might have to use your smartphone or your computer to take pictures of work that's not originally done on computer, and you can save those images. Just think outside the box, but you want to make sure that you can get to your work and use it as a way to demonstrate your learning and growth as a writer this semester. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and I hope this video was useful. On the screen are some other things you might consider as you work through to complete the English 101 portfolio assignment. Thank you.